All right, good afternoon. My name is Russell with NTX Plumbing. Today, I was going to talk to you guys a little bit about some different categories or subcategories or specialties in the plumbing world that the average person that doesn't deal with plumbing may not realize that's what plumbers do or what it took to get to where they're at. So we'll go over, today we'll talk a little bit about water heaters, we'll talk about backflow protection, and we'll talk about plumbing licensing. So starting with water heaters, there's all kinds of water heaters from, it depends, so electric, natural gas, propane, and then you have what's called a hybrid or a heat pump water heater that actually uses an air conditioning system that's mounted on top of the water heater to pull the heat out of the air to heat the water. Those are pretty uncommon, but if your house does not have gas, it's a much more efficient way of heating your water than using a standard electric water heater. They're a little bit more costly up front, but you do save in the long run. We put one in our house as soon as we moved in. We don't have gas out there. We put one in. We've had it for 7 years now. It's working great. So, heat pump water heaters, something people may not know about. Tank versus tankless water heaters is something to consider. In my professional opinion, if you don't have gas, tankless water heater is not a good option for you. It pulls way too much amperage, and most times you do have to replace your panel or upsize your panel in order to go to a tankless water heater. I've installed one in my career. The customer called me back like 6 months later and paid me to take it out and put a regular water heater back in. So electric tankless water heaters, I wouldn't go for that. I would steer towards a heat pump water heater if you have all electric in your home. Now, if you have gas, whether it be natural gas or propane, tankless water heaters are very efficient and they work great if they're installed properly. That's the key. They got to be installed properly. But if the gas is sized properly and everything is set up and working, tankless water heaters are really a much more efficient way of heating your water. You don't have a 50-gallon tank sitting in your attic or in your garage sitting there holding water, potentially going to bust and leak someday. It's about the size of a large suitcase, and it mounts on the wall, and it only heats the water when you open the faucet, unless you have it set up on a dedicated recirc system, which if you have a dedicated recirc, there's a pump, and it'll always keep this loop of hot water ready for you, and it runs through your house. And so way over here on the other side of your house, you might open up your master bathroom faucet and hot water's there because you have that dedicated recirculation loop. That's the only time it's going to heat water if you're, other than when you don't have to open a faucet. But either option, they're still very efficient compared to a regular gas water heater that's 24 hours a day going to bring the burner on underneath, heat the water to temperature, and then turn off, and it's just going to do that even in the middle of the night if you're on vacation and you don't set it on pilot. So overall, you can save a lot of money by going to tankless if you have a gas water heater. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about backflow protection. Backflow protection is not actually a plumbing license issue or category. It's actually regulated by a different agency called Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, I believe it's TCEQ. But what backflow protection is the prevention of cross-contamination of dirty water back into the public drinking water system. Now you do have to be a licensed plumber to install the backflow device, but you have to have a separate license than a plumbing license to test the backflow device. The backflow device has to be tested every year. The cities regulate that. They started this program in Texas in 1996. Because of the amount of cross connections, and people actually die over the years of pulling contaminated water back into the public drinking water system. So I recently went and got my BPAT license, a backflow prevention, assembly, and tester is what that stands for. That's, like I said, that's outside of the plumbing license, but what that allows me to do is go out and test the devices and make sure that they're operating properly to protect from any backflow. Potential cross-contamination. In every large building, like in the building we're in now, in downtown buildings, any commercial building is required to have a backflow device on their domestic water coming into the building. If you're in a big building, you've probably got it down in the basement somewhere. This one is probably out in the mechanical room where they have a 2-inch copper line coming in to feed the building with water. and it has to run through that backflow device. It's called a RPZ, or a reduced pressure zone. So if you have a business, or if you get a letter from the city, a lot of times what happens is the city will send your business a letter saying, hey, you haven't tested your backflow devices, and they'll give you a deadline. So if you get that letter, think of a plumber. A plumber that has the right license can do it. There's also companies that's all they do is backflow testing. So they could come out and test it, but if it fails or has to be repaired or replaced, it needs to be sent back to a licensed plumber. So it just makes sense for a plumbing company to do both, and that's what we've brought into NTX Plumbing recently. So and then moving on, just kind of talk a little bit about licensing. The Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners was established in 1947 as the standard for testing and renewing licenses for licensed plumbers in the state of Texas. I believe we're one of the only agencies that's not looped in with TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. That's another agency that regulates a lot of different trades, but plumbing has its own agency, and the reason for that is because of the stringent licensing requirements and the potential for backflow and cross-contamination, really public health. So they've taken that very seriously. Licensing for plumbers, there's 3 different main licenses. There's what's called a tradesman license. That takes 2 years to get. You have to be working under a master, and a master has to sign off on your hours, but you basically have to get 4,000 hours of hands-on training to get a tradesman license, and that allows you to work on residential only. The journeyman license is the next one. That takes 4 years to get. Again, you got to work under a master plumber, and they have to sign off on it. Master plumber, or journeyman plumber, pretty much allows you to work residential or commercial. You don't have any restrictions with a master plumber. The only restriction is you can't operate a company with a journeyman plumber's license. And then of course there's a master plumber, and that takes 8 years to get in the state of Texas. So a lot of people compare that to some doctorate degrees and lawyer degrees, but there's a lot of different subcategories, and plumbing is very deep. It's way deeper than what a lot of people think of it as. So it takes 8 years to get your master plumbing license, and then that allows you to operate a company. Now you can own a company without any license, but you have to have a master plumber on staff, and he has to be registered with the state as the responsible master plumber for that company. So that's pretty much what I had prepared for today. Is there any questions? Sir.
A few years back, they were talking about trying to do away with the plumbing license.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going?
I remember that.
Yeah, it was called the Sunset Act. Lots of plumbers from the state of Texas went down to the state capitol building, and
Did you march too?
I didn't go. I was knee deep in
And
air.
you should have.
Yeah.
And I know it was just because of the some of the general contractors that wanted to use unlicensed help, and so it'd be cheaper.
Yeah.
But so are they letting that go?
No.
They did extend it. They did extend it, I believe, until 2030 or 2032, and then there's going to be another sunset review.
There shouldn't be any review on that.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, sir.
Cost of a tankless water heater versus a tank for gas.
Gas. So switching from a tank top to a tankless, there are modifications that typically are going to have to happen. The price range is going to be between $4,000 to $6,000 to get a natural gas tankless water heater installed.
How big of a gas line do you need?
You only need a 1/2-inch gas line, but what's important is what's leading up to that 1/2-inch gas line. You got to have a proper size gas line coming into the building that can handle every gas appliance in your house or building as if they were running all at once. So like tankless water heater, fireplace, range, you might have a gas dryer. You size that gas coming into your house as if everything was running all at once, and it would be big enough to supply everything. So but technically you only got to have a 1/2-inch gas line, but it can only run 20 feet, and it depends on what's before that. So anytime we give an estimate for a tankless water heater, if they have a tank water heater, we're going to go through and do a gas size system, or a gas system sizing, and we're going to so we're going to size the gas system and make sure it's sized properly. Yes, ma'am.
When we were in Snow Beginning, quite a few of our neighbors have the tankless, and apparently the builders put them on an exterior wall,
Yeah,
and so they froze, like bad.
yeah,
And then they were like blew up, pretty much.
yeah.
So, do they have to be set on an outside wall?
They do not have to. No, that's an option that some people choose. And unfortunately, with major freezes like we had in 2021, where we lost that power for like a week, the only hope we have of saving that tankless water heater is draining it down before the freeze starts. If it's
Yeah,
installed,
They didn't do that.
yeah, if it's installed properly, there's little drain valves underneath it, and you can literally drain the water out. But
Okay.
most people don't know to do that.
So how much are regular water heaters costing now? 75 gallon?
75 gallon would probably run around 3,500 installed.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
50 gallon would probably run around, I think our average price is around 25 to 28 for a 50 gallon change out. We're not the cheapest out there, but we're somewhere in the middle, and we'll always back our warranty. And that's just as important as the price is. What's going to happen if you have a problem and you need that plumber to come back out? Is he going to answer the phone? Is he going to honor his warranty and do the right thing for you? And NTX Plumbing always will.
I have a comment about that.
Yes, sir.
I can go to Home Depot and buy a water heater. I can redo the gas vent. I can redo the pressure valve. If I don't do it right, I could burn out of my house or poison my family with carbon dioxide.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand how they get away with that crap. I mean, it just seems to me this, it's like electrician. I can go buy all kinds of stuff and rewire my house, but if I don't do it right, I'm going to burn the place down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just seems very, same thing with the irrigation system.
Yeah.
If I don't put in that backflow valve right, don't get the city inspected, what the heck?
Yeah.
I saved $1,000 by doing it myself.
Yeah, and you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy every bit of this stuff that he just mentioned. Legally, as a homeowner, you're allowed to work on your own home.
Right.
You're allowed to do that, but you're supposed to pull a homeowner's permit, yeah, and then have the city come out and inspect it. But yeah, it's very rare.
So
Yeah.
with the electrical, they're allowed to do anything in the home electrical except for they cannot get under the panel.
Okay, can't take the cover off.
Legally, you cannot take that panel cover off and do anything, which means breakers or anything like that. So is
Yeah.
there something on the gas end that they're not allowed to do as a homeowner?
I hope so.
Not to my knowledge.
Yes, they need to.
No,
Is that
yeah.
something you can blow yourself?
If they pull a
Yeah.
homeowner's permit, they're allowed to do it. And,
Wow.
but it doesn't happen very often, and that's where you get into trouble. You have a lot of improper installations out there.
Well, and if they have a gas leak in the home, because you guys pressure test, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yes,
all
sir.
that, and if they have something going on, then absolutely.
Professional standards make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, thank you.